The Jamestown settlers left their homeland to journey into a place they had never seen, much like Abraham stepping out in faith into the unknown. They crossed the Atlantic in three small ships: the Susan Constant, the Discovery, and the Godspeed. Their captain, Christopher Newport, led a company of men who crossed carrying Angleton beliefs, a chaplain named Robert Hunt, and a desire to share the Christian faith with the native people. They hoped to meet them when they came to the land. And like many after them, they also hoped to find gold. Robert Hunt often held prayer services, both during the voyage and after they arrived. The journey took 4 long months, and when they finally reached the shores of Virginia, they discovered a land far harsher than they expected. The soil was poor, the water was not fit to drink, and the air was thick with mosquitoes. Most of the settlers had little experience with farming, and they arrived too late in the year to plant their crops. Many were too busy searching for gold to plant the food, which frustrated John Smith. Smith was a soldier, an explorer, and a man who had survived captivity. He had survived shipwrecks and war long before he saw Virginia. His leadership style was blunt, disciplined, and intensely practical. He believed survival depended on work, not status. And he warned the settlers, if they didn't work, they didn't eat. Starvation and disease swept through the colony. Many died, others grew weak. Yet even in the hardship, Captain Hunt planted a wooden cross at Cape Henry and led the settlers in prayer, dedicating the land to God, just as Joshua did when Israel entered the Promised Land. The Powhatan people offered help at crucial moments, providing food and knowledge of the land. Without their assistance, the colony might not have survived its earliest months. Then came disaster. A fire tore through the settlement, destroying buildings and precious supplies. And leadership changed at the worst possible time. Captain John Smith, whose discipline and practical leadership had held the colony together, he was injured and forced to return to England. His replacement, George Percy, lacked Smith's strength and his decisiveness. Under his leadership, the colony entered one of its darkest periods. To make matters worse, the settlers were struck by what would later be called the starving period, the starving time, the brutal winter of 1609 and 1610. Food ran out, disease spread, and only a small handful survived. For the Powhatan people, the arrival of the English was not just a curiosity, it was a threat. They watched strangers settle on their land and struggle to survive and depend on them for food. At times they offered help, sharing corn, teaching survival skills, and extending diplomacy. Other times they defended their territory fiercely. Robert Hunt often reminded the settlers that even in sickness, hunger, and fear, that God had not abandoned them. For some, the Jamestown was not just an economic venture. It was a mission field, a place where the Christian faith might take root in a new world. But America's godly heritage doesn't mean the people who shaped this nation were perfect. It means the ideas that they carried, rooted in moral law and human dignity, were bigger than their failures. Some of the settlers were cruel to the Powhatan people, and their actions stand as a reminder that God's purposes often move through imperfect people. Jamestown was the beginning of a fragile foothold carved out through faith, hardship, and the help of the Powhatan people. It was a story of courage and of contradiction, of spiritual hope and human failure. But from this small, struggling settlement, a new chapter of America's story began to unfold. As more settlers arrived and the colonies grew, new conflicts, alliances, and spiritual movements would shape the land, and soon the struggle for the control of North America would ignite a war that changed everything, the French and Indian War, which I'll get to in a later episode.